United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. More help.
Good morning.
Call the meeting, call to order our Jefferson County Local Development Corporation December monthly meeting. Welcome. Hopefully everybody
Recording in progress.
Sorry about that.
was safe through the snow event, which is expected to early. Welcome, Don, and everyone else. So privilege of the floor.
Morning, Jay.
So we have our minutes on page 3 that are in the packet and if reviewed. Motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
David first.
Second.
John. I only heard something.
I know, it is
It's
hard
very
to-
hard to tell down this
I know.
line.
that chair.
But
I hide
that's my
behind
back
it.
to the public, and that's
I
the
just hide
problem.
behind it.
Yeah.
The hair colors match.
Any other corrections or?
You guys got the memo today.
Okay, so we have a first, second, no additions or corrections. All in favor, aye? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Paul, page 8, I believe, is the treasurer's report.
We're 11 months into the year. It looks like all our numbers are going to work within the budgets. It's a little misleading in the revenues and expenses because of the grant money, but if you pull those two out, we should end up within budgets for the most part, even including the ag programs. Jay. Well, he was late. Someone over here said he wasn't going to be here today.
Oh, no, he was joking.
Wild jokes.
Man.
That'll teach you.
But all the programs,
See if there's a target.
all the programs should be well within budget, and some are going to be under budget, which if it continues on next month. So it looks like the LDC is in good shape to get through the year.
Okay. There wasn't any of the past due reports in there, in this particular report packet. It did show up in the IDA one. Is anything past due? Or?
I did not get a past due report.
Yeah, the loans that are in here, there was no page.
We have probably 2 or 3 of the COVID loans
Okay.
that are passed through, but it's tough to deal with these.
Okay. Just that page wasn't in here.
Yeah.
It was in the other board reports.
The regular micro loans within the LDC are all current.
Okay, good, because there were a couple that were slipping.
Were any of those COVID loans, like, as I recall, there weren't anybody 90 days, were there?
We have one that hasn't made a payment in a year, so
Yeah, just one.
But I think we've agreed the 2,500 that was kind of a grant only occurs. if
once they reach that 2,500 mark,
Okay.
I do write it off.
Okay. All right. I guess a motion, Paul, did you
Marshall?
make a motion to?
Yes, right.
Yeah, so Paul had a first, a second.
Second.
Greg, any other questions or discussions on the treasurer's report? If none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill's on,
Bill's on it.
and the motion carries. So committee, I think that starts with you, Lisa.
Yes, the nominating committee met on November 14th, and we had proposed the slate of officers that is in the attached resolution. And Rob will continue as chair, vice chair Ed, treasurer is Paul, and secretary Dr. Greg Gardner is stepping up, and that fills the vacancy in terms of the position when Kent Berto left. He was the outgoing secretary when he left, and so we did have to fill that position on the slate. So
And we do have a resolution for that after we get through your next.
sure.
section.
So you do see a resolution that is attached with the slate of officers. I don't know if you want me to read it or you want to read
No,
it.
I'll read it. I just, if you want to just finish your committee report, because we have another matter, right? Board vacancies.
We do. I kind of skipped over it only because I think it's the IDA that has to do the,
You're correct. I just didn't know if you wanted to report.
well,
We could do it in the IDA.
but we can,
You're
yeah, I mean,
Because we
but,
don't actually vote on it to the IDA.
right, but we did discuss that there were 2 vacancies on the LDC and discussed potential candidates. And then we had a subsequent nominating committee for the IDA where we did approve 2 people that were recommended. One of them is here,
Okay.
Alan Robinson, so.
Good. And we'll vote on those in the IDA.
Yeah.
Because they have to appoint the LDC members, so, but I just wanted to make mention of it there, so. Any questions for Lisa? And then other than that, we'll move to the resolution. Okay, resolution is on page 30. Jefferson County Local Development Corporation Resolution 12.05.2024.01 for election of officers. Whereas the nominating committee met on November 14, 2024, and recommended the following slate of officers for the 2025 calendar year. Chairman, Robert E. Eliason Jr., Vice Chairman, W. Edward Waldorf, Treasurer, Paul D. Warnick, Secretary, Dr. Gregory A. Gardner, and therefore the Board of Directors of the JCLDC approved this slate of officers. So we have a resolution. Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Lisa, in a second.
Second, Rob.
Any other discussion? You can still fire all of us. Anybody wants to step up? It's your last chance. Going once. Okay.
That doesn't work.
You get to use the company jet. Come on.
Oh,
You
yeah.
forgot about that. We got our own airport.
Yeah, but you can put your own fuel in it.
We have our own airport and everything. So all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Now, council reports. Jay will give you the floor for some time and then move on to others. Thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome, Dawn. Good to see you at the table. I look forward to working with you in this capacity as well. Want to congratulate Mr. Gardner. Next Wednesday is 24 years since we started Ag Economic Development here in Jefferson County. So, and you were a huge part of putting that together. So,
I thought you looked a lot.
yeah. I'm feeling a little bit older too. Yes.
It's been great. Thank you.
You helped guide that whole process pretty significantly. So just wanted to point that out and say congratulations. This morning on the way into work, took a phone call from a company looking for a site with rail siding, an agricultural company. So another prospect out there, pretty interesting. Our 3 current prospects, we're working with each of them. My understanding is one of them will be in town here in another week to talk to folks about their projects. So we're continuing to try to push all of those along. HP Hood, we're talking with HP Hood about their expansion project. So that'll be good to see that happening as well. And then it's everything else is just status quo. We're moving along with the grant program. We've got to roll out the next round of grants this month and try to get everything in place. Trying to start to move the Ag Conference for the spring, trying to put that, get that in order, as well as the Dairy Parade and potentially Dairy Festival. So no shortage of things to do at all. Yes, sir.
The first thing you said, did you say something about rail?
Yeah.
Are they looking for a spur? What are they?
They're willing to build a spur if necessary. So.
Well, can we follow up on that with, back when Renzi's was talking about their expansion, we had to do something, relocate. Is US Food still moving ahead with the expansion Renzi's had planned?
That's unclear.
And is there a site available within that park where there is a rail siding?
Well, there's the site right next to that. I mean, we have a rail siding right there that's ready to go. It's not in service as far as CSX is concerned. I have a number of people interested in using the site, using that siding. It's it's a little tricky. It's one of those things where it's kind of difficult to get started. If you have a rail siding, and this is a brand new, never been, no, 0 miles, cream puff rail siding, but they're hard to get off the ground. You have minimum number of cars you need, before all these additional insurance pieces take place. If you have 25 cars a month, CSX puts it in service, the fees are minimal. But if you have less than that, you're responsible for insurance and for a number of different sort of complicating factors. So I guess to answer your question, we have it in place. It's not perfect for everybody because there's not a whole lot of staging area or room for offloading and unloading. It can totally be done. You can pull up a car, offload pellets or what have you, but it's not perfect for everybody. It's a little bit sort of a tricky of a spot.
Is there a rail siding out by Rudd's?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a big one that's nice, and we've been in contact with Rudd's numerous. Jay's taken me up there, had a number of conversations with them. It's they're doing their own thing. I guess I'd sort of characterize it, Jay, unless you have a different
No, that's a
opinion.
good way to put it.
They're not. They're totally open to talking to people. They've been great to speak about opportunities, but getting it across the finish line has been sort of tricky, and it's busy with their agriculture products anyway. So between that one, the one that we have at the corporate park, the potential for one at the Purcell site, and what am I missing?
There's the one near Carthage that we funded.
And there's the one near Carthage. That's the
It's kind of put in for Slack and others.
yeah.
I forget precisely where, I'll just say Carthage.
Yes, it's in Carthage. It's one of those things. I know where it is, generally speaking, but that hasn't come up.
Okay, but that's operational, correct?
Operational, yeah.
And to further that, there's an old site in Evans Mills that doesn't have the switch in anymore, but it could go back in and be brought back into operation. That's a site that might be considered. Also looking at a couple other locations here along the main line to try and find something that fits for this. This would be a fairly good size load unload facility. So you have to be careful of the sites you consider. I don't know if the city center park site would quite work for this.
Yeah.
The Verdict Street one's still connected, correct?
That's the one, the Cleaves.
Yeah.
That was one I was just going to mention real quick.
And that's what I was talking to them about.
And it's fun because CSX stays in touch, and I had actually occasionally he'll come up twice a year and wants to talk and do a quick drive around to see everything, which we do. The Cleaves site, the rail is fine. It doesn't look great. It doesn't look like something, but he's like, we could back a train in here right now, which was a little bit of a surprise.
You just find the site in Evans Mills, there's one in Philly, a lot of those potential sites,
Yeah.
but you gotta match the site. Traditionally, rail is commodity based, kind of is high volume, kind of industrial.
Yeah.
It's for the fit over by Renzi's, it's like to modify traffic patterns in and out. It's like.
And for
very
this
limited.
company, they're putting a limitation on how far north they want to go. So
And there's another, the new Amino Max.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
another one that's,
and I'll just mention that quickly. The Afgratech plant that's over by the public safety building, the ownership is transferred, it's been sold. It is now owned by Pool and Grain. They do have intentions of maintaining and growing the operation over the next several years. The owner of the company is coming into town, and I'm going to be meeting with him. I think it's either next week or the week after.
Steve, besides the rail siding, what's the actual footprint they need, and don't they need to build adjacent to the rail siding?
No, they need to
Okay.
build adjacent
Do
to
they need like
and
100,000 square feet?
No, and this isn't so much building space as just space. They need a footprint, probably 10 acres at the most.
Okay. So
would
that
do it.
also somewhat
Yeah.
limits the
Yeah.
choices.
Yeah. They're actually small enough that probably city center wouldn't work, but I don't think they'd be limited on many of the other
So
locations.
they're kind of looking mid to South Jeff County.
So in freight, they go by zones. Is there a zone line between Watertown and any point north? Say the Evans Mills or
I've
Philly,
never had that
I don't know.
mentioned.
Could be,
to the point where just by getting 5 miles this way, you're in the zone that's
Is there rail up near that?
Cheaper.
that could be, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's never been talked about when
When
we've been talking with the CSX
Oh, yeah,
folks,
it's
so.
kind of-
With HB Hood, are you talking with them about coming through the agency for tax abatement for the
I was thinking
expansion?
about, like, I'd take it back over to Clayton.
Yeah.
How big is their expansion?
Place, but maybe it's-
I don't remember the square footage. It's not that big an expansion, be about 15 million. So it's not a huge project, but it's an expansion in this day and age, especially for HB Hood, because each plant across the corporation competes against the other plant. So they're always under the gun to outcompete the similar plants.
There is rail there.
And so with HB Hood and Lafargeville, they compete against the HB Hood plant in Virginia, which is a newer
I
plant.
think it's their.
And so they've always got to be on their toes up here because it's an older plant competing against a young plant. But they do a good job up here. So we're very fortunate to have the folks there that we do. So. Apologize for going so long, folks.
No problem. Any questions? Good report. Good opportunities.
stay off those roofs, Jay.
Stay out from underneath them as well,
Yeah.
I think at this point. Thank you. Manufacturing and marketing, you choose which order and who combined.
Yeah, I guess I'll talk, there's not really a whole lot, do you have anything to report on the manufacturing piece?
No, just mention that we are back with working with Metalcraft.
Yeah.
And they're looking at expanding to 50 jobs here in this. So they reached out. We're working on a bunch of different things. You know.
Does this have anything to do with the federal contract that they may have lost, but not likely, or is it in addition?
There was the state.
It's a state,
State park.
to,
Government.
not, talk too much, they are going to be, that bid is out, and been due as of Monday.
Okay.
And they put in a, which I'm sure was an extremely compelling bid, and New York State law enforcement boats made by a New York State law enforcement boat manufacturer. This to me should be a done deal, but that's just me talking as a regular citizen. It makes a lot of sense. So that bid has come back up, and they've applied, and we are fingers crossed that they are successful in that bid.
Is there expansion on their current site, or are they looking for a new site?
They're looking for a new site.
We have one.
For the whole operation, or would they keep that one in place?
No, they're taking that operation and moving it.
So
Yep.
they want
They're gonna bring some of their people from Canada.
Canada?
Yeah. Keep some engineers and management in Canada, but they want to lump it all some, and they want to keep it in Watertown.
Make a note.
Still have that lot, don't we?
It's good size. So we'll keep you posted.
Well,
Good stuff.
so begs the question, is that site, can that site accommodate that?
No, its site is too small.
Yeah.
No, it's gotta be different site.
Yeah.
They're talking a lot of things that they're coming in.
They're also
Doubling
not
their
the
wealth.
best spot for shipping big things in
Doubling
and
their
out of that
wealth.
road. They're at like almost the bitter end of the road.
Cool.
Unless they can
But they reached
launch them in the river, which would be fun.
They're
Down that little incline, put them on the river and really give them a test.
working with that.
There you go. That's what I was thinking about. You can fly stuff in and out. That'd be like the state.
And it'd be that much closer to testing area, there would be some, they would like a pre-existing building.
Could be benefits.
Yeah.
That would suspect they probably need 10-ish acres.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is really
they want
a drop in the bucket.
100,000 square feet. Yeah.
It's a drop in the bucket for what is available in a couple spots. It's good. What were the other lots we have that we,
Not-
is it 3 and 4 or 50
Yeah,
numbers? I know they need a ton of level.
And they're they're tricky,
They
yeah.
weren't really equaling 10 acres combined. anyway.
I think combined they were 11, but I don't know if it was like 11 usable. I think, you know, after you make all the changes on the.
There's 3 square feet that's flat,
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
but there may be 11 acres.
Yeah.
Do you have any potential sites with a pre-existing building that they can go?
There's one they're looking very closely at.
Good. Fantastic. Anything else in marketing or management?
I just want to mention something real quick in regards to our program that we're working with, just on the marketing side, because it is a marketing program with Strategic Development Services. Was hoping to get something for you as we talked, you know, a lot about having some reporting. Leanne has a terrible case of the flu, and I haven't been able to reach her, and she is an extremely responsive person. So I'm sure she's fine, but she's not in a good way. Had a meeting with Mark day before yesterday here, and we talked with Corey Fran, you know, sort of, you know, obviously working on all the tourism piece and assets that we have in the county, kind of getting a handle on that. Corey is doing a little bit of work, you know, we're putting like a comprehensive asset, and we talked about this last month, piece together that has everything from tourism, available sites, colleges, anything, any asset could be leveraged for opportunity based on Micron or other. You know, we've talked so much about Micron, but there's going to be so many, you know, tertiary businesses and things, as well as just general economic development process for opportunities that come along separate from that. So, you know, I just want to mention it is a marketing program. County Administrator Bichet and I are going back down next week to talk with the Onondaga County IDA staff, meet them, and I'm looking forward to that. I've never had a chance to meet with those folks before, so excited about that. I'm sure I actually have at one of these events, but you know, you meet so many people there, but those kinds of things. And we've had 2 other meetings with county leadership that have all gone very well. So we're staying busy, but I don't have a report. I have a stack of paperwork of things that we've been doing, but the program is going along very nicely, and as we all know, we're excited about it and excited about the opportunity. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there. That I don't have anything for you, and I haven't heard anything from Leanne. So
What do they see as the tertiary businesses that are going to come in because
Could
of
be
Micron?
crating. It could be a lot of things. I mean, we could make crates to ship the equipment Micron manufacturers because they export it internationally.
Yeah.
It's things like that. That's what I would immediately envision.
and as we, you know, and I have always taken the position that if your supplier on the supply chain piece is going into Micron is also working with Fort Drum, it makes sense for them to consider Jefferson County. I've kind of looked at that as sort of a tertiary. That could be a direct supplier to Micron, but as you say, it could be packaging, trucking.
Those are the types of things when you look at like wage and benefits in our county versus say Syracuse area.
Yeah.
There is a difference, and freight's not that big of a killer. So to
Yep.
balance it out, it's a lot easier to not take more valuable land. And I don't want to criticize Jefferson County by saying it this way, but more valuable land in and around the Micron development, you would build that off-site within say a number 70-mile radius or something.
The tertiary is really just a word that we've been using. We are trying to be somewhat careful with the words we're using. This is Onondaga County's project on the Micron Direct piece, and we want to make sure that that we're respecting that and playing this properly.
I'm assuming the Micron site will get the designation of like free trade zone like we do, or is that a benefit we could, because we could actually be a Amazon clearing center, for lack of a better descriptive word, where we could export to other places, and that is you see those popping up everywhere now.
Yeah.
Walmart, Amazon, I mean, they're choosing particular areas because of that whole trucks can only travel for so many hours at a time, then they have to dump things off, and it's a lot easier to have kind of the FedEx UPS model where things are in one spot and then they kind of go back out.
I don't know on a
Nice
kind of
airport.
status. Yeah, we do.
Is that foreign? We got that foreign trade.
We do. Yeah,
Okay.
they're ready to go, but they're not, in service. There's there's a lot of like legwork that gets done to get something sort of ready to be a foreign trade zone, and then once it becomes in service,
Whatever, the Micron stuff isn't very big. It's just a lot.
Well, it's what is it, 10 acres of?
No. I mean the product they produce.
Oh, no, the product is as small as it gets.
They're like
Yeah.
little
It is
wafers.
small.
They're like
Yeah.
this size. So like there's just lots of them.
Yeah.
So they actually make sense to ship whatever to Taiwan from a foreign trade zone in a crate that could be made in Jefferson County. So those are what I suspect the
Yeah.
types of things that would make sense, that not be in the immediate Syracuse area.
So Marshall, we passed the resolution at the last meeting, we did enter into the contract with them. The check's gone out,
Yep.
we're committed
We're committed. We're good to go.
for 2 years.
We have a 6-month notice clause or something.
Yeah, we can get out.
It's 1 year with a.
1 year with
With
an
an
additional year.
But we pretty much planned on both years.
We're expecting 100% to move forward with 2 3 years.
I mean, the county back funded
Right.
the
Right.
1 year. And then we'll see the results and look to make sense of the second year, which at this point, just the opportunities that are becoming evident.
No, they're building a plant in Idaho too, correct?
Correct.
And that is further along in the process. They're actually under construction now. Are they looking to see what are the spin-offs at that plant?
My understanding is that's a strictly R&D plant, and that's not what's taking place at Clay.
Okay,
There will be an R&D piece to it, but that is a R&D plant at Idaho that's been, they're from Boise, which is interesting, and great. So they're not in Palo Alto, but they're in Boise, started in Boise, and that plant has been, in process for years. That was never an issue.
So we'll
Whether or
soon
not
expect a Micron bowl game since Boise State is
Yeah,
actually becoming
the Micron Bowl, yeah.
The Micron Bowl.
So I don't know if I answered your question.
yes, you did.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? We'll move on to page 31, 32. Robin, you've been kind of going through the ARPA stuff.
Yep, going through the ARPA, it's been slow. People are, hard to get receipts and the compliance, but I've got a couple that'll be closing out this month. You'll see on page 32, it's called second round. And we're focusing the bottom number, the not allocated. That not allocated is what has not been used in round one. So total of 281, but if you look, we're gonna sit down in January and figure out, for small business productivity, well, the biggest projects are 10,000, so that's 7 projects. So we're getting down there, but this is in January, that's what our focus is. Okay.
Do we
let's
have
bang-
applications? You have applications for that or no?
Not yet. We have, some have been trickling in, but we really haven't pushed it because my focus was really locking in because I didn't want us to oversell
Sure.
and then have turn people down. So,
Right.
because I found some errors and some stuff like that, but that's what our focus is in January because we have 2 years. So if the people they've gotten approved, but they haven't done anything in a year and a half, we're reaching out and say, hey, respond to me in 30 days if you still want this, and then let's get the ball moving. You have so much time to get this going. Okay? Any other questions?
But you still are coming from the position that matching funds to application, we're in a close balance
Yes.
to utilization.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
We're
Yep.
watching that very
Yeah.
closely.
I'm keeping an eye right on that. Same with round 2. If there's people out there that haven't done anything, round 2s were approved in 2023. And there are some people that, they need a little jab to remind them, hey, let's get this done. And that's what our focus is.
We
Okay.
just had a farm that had been approved in round 2. And the initial indications were they weren't going to be able to use the funds. Well, now they're finding other grant sources that they can match with. to do a big project that they need to accomplish. So all of a sudden, they're back on the docket to use their funds.
Which makes this the perfect success. You don't want a program where, guess what, there's 5 people left over out of 50 that got turned down, because then you've got that animosity going. So that's, to have this balanced out for, request and demand is perfect.
We do, I will say, to just touch on that real quick, we work with them. If someone said, we get applications for things that are not gonna be approved. Or calls, or sort of, hey, what do you think about this? But we work with them to make sure that, by the time we bring something to you and talk with the committees, that they're in a strong position. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And Robin, obviously, handling that beautifully, so.
Anything for council under this meeting, Justin?
Nothing to report.
Okay, any new business from the board or staff? Or council? Adjournment.
So
Yes.
moved.
Ready? We
Second.
have a first and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
We're good. Thank you so much.
We're gonna head out. I
Thanks for
would
attending.
make one announcement that Dawn will soon be Dr. Robinson.
All right.
Wow.
We're gonna have our gaining staff.
Let me know so I can update your credentials.
Right.
I need a script.
Very good.
Happy holidays.
Thanks. Drive safe. Happy holidays.
Safe trip.
So we'll call to order our Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency December board meeting. We've done the pledge, privilege of the floor. I think we still do not have any guests. Minutes, page 3. They've been reviewed. If so, resolution or motion to accept.
Second.
Paul, second. All in favor? Any discussion on the
No,
minutes?
I'm sorry. I was,
Dave Converse was the first. Paul was the second.
thank you.
And we're just moving right along here. We got things to do. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes carried. Treasurer's report, page 6.
Once again, we're down to 11 months, so it gives us an idea where we're going to end up in the year. And I'm going to do my broken record
Deep in
thing.
the hole.
We're the 660 that shows up as our remaining balance in revenues is not accurate because of the grants. We're not going to come close to our budgeted revenue expectations for the leaseback fee, pilot leaseback fees. Other than that, I've said it enough. We all know that was coming, and the same thing appears down to the operation expenses because of the grant information. It makes it look like we're better. It really doesn't take into account where we are. So the balance sheets are within expectations. I see we've had some payments for the sewer project made this month.
Yes.
Correct. And as for the defaults, the late payments, I think they're going to be discussed in an upcoming executive session, so
Only one of them.
I think we have 3 things to talk about.
Okay, well, I mean, we can talk about anything in executive sessions that is within the rules,
Okay.
but yeah, there's definitely one to talk about.
I was led to believe there was a new request for.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Okay. So, and I think we have to have a discussion in there about the one continual that's 5 or 6 months behind one of our loans. Being the furniture place. I can never remember the name.
Painfully.
Painful Acres. So, other than that, everything is within what we would have expected walking through the year, with the exception of the pilot leaseback fees.
Yeah, notice we've also burned through about 260
Yeah,
in cash from month over month. Now, some of it could just be,
there was 150. There was a large payment
yeah.
made to for the contract for
North
the
Country.
North Country.
Yeah, I'm saying some of it is, but we also don't have cash coming in to replenish.
That's correct.
that on the same rate.
that project complete? It's a different question. We're in the treasurer's report.
Yeah, we can cover that under building and grounds, which is coming up soon, right?
Yeah.
I
I move to accept the
Okay,
treasurer's.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
That's Ed. Any other discussion or questions on the report? There is going to be an executive session later on towards the end of the meeting that there is a new request that we have to consider, which does fall under kind of a, it's not a default yet.
That's correct.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports, anything under alternative energy?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Condino, I guess the first question was, is the sewer project? I think that's the question you asked, right? And then you can go on your.
So March, I wouldn't say it's 100% complete. I know we had a project meeting, a week ago?
Yeah.
And I would have guessed they would have been somewhere in the 80% area. Obviously, they had cut a lot of rock out there. At the time, last week, they were reporting that it's not uncommon for the rock saw to be down. That's a brutal operation. But I'm not sure we have any update since then.
They have a lot
what
of
the progress
pumping,
is.
or is it?
What's that?
Is it dryish there? Do they have a lot of pumping too because of our weather?
No complaints.
No.
No complaints about that.
No.
I guess that's good.
No.
I'm surprised, like, it's been so wet lately.
No, actually, I think that place is actually fairly well drained.
And that rock
To the river.
saw go right through the snow.
Yeah, not worried so much about the snow. It's just when you dig a hole and it tends to fill with
Fill
water.
right up, yeah.
It fills with water.
So the rock cuts all within budget, all within.
Yes.
No over,
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
expecting no overruns.
No,
And
none at all on that.
it had to be done by the 31st of
Well-
December. Is there some like runoff period where it's got to be substantially complete and some other?
I believe there's an extension granted on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
yes.
did get.
We did get,
We
we want that done as soon as possible.
No,
Yeah,
I know we wanted it done as soon as possible for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, winter is fighting against us as well, but I wasn't sure if we're, down to
We're not down to some.
26 days and
No.
we're out of time. Okay, so we're good. So the grant is
Extended.
extended and the workforce is clearly
Yeah, they're doing well.
on schedule or ahead of. That's good. Good
What
job.
did they
extend the grant to?
That one was to
May-
a 4-1, I believe.
4-1?
Yeah, or maybe it's 4-1 or 6-1. And then one of them, they just extended it a whole nother year.
Yeah.
So it's,
Okay,
we're in good position.
good stuff. Any questions for building and grounds? Yeah. The thing we talked about, we don't need to talk about right now, Marshall, that 30,000 in permit. Okay, I figured that was all covered. Okay.
Well, are you talking about the whole report or just the sewer?
No, I was asking if you were
Building
done
and
with this
grounds.
whole report.
Oh,
Are you, John?
That's all I have to report at this
Okay, I
point.
thought you said yes. Any other questions?
yeah, it's like, as
Go right ahead.
I was reading the report, it's like, one thing that shocked me was sewer. The capacity for that whole build out is only 15,000 gallons a day
That's the initial capacity.
for the whole park. Isn't that a major, I mean, we got project managers here, but like a typical McDonald's, how many gallons of water a day would they, in something like a fast food chain, put into that? 1,000 gallons a day, it'd have to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I understand the infrastructure has the capacity, a greater capacity than that. That's the initial limit that the village of Brownville put on it. And that was really based on the numbers projected from what we thought was going to be the development there, including the airport building expansion. So,
Do you see that as problematic for an 80-acre?
Well,
so those are things that need to be considered, not just the capacity of the sewer. I believe there's more than enough water capacity there, but also the power, et cetera. So those are all things that I think the committee is going to take up. We actually, part of the charge is to put together what the real numbers are, their potential is there. not just the current numbers, but what the potential is.
And the pain point not being the infrastructure piece that we're working on, the pain point is the capacity of the actual plant at the end of the thing,
Right.
which has opportunities
The
for,
treatment plant.
the treatment plant.
And there's opportunities for expansion there too.
So it's not ideal, not something that can't be,
Well, I realize as it relates to the line going in, the line, I mean, we can handle far greater than that. But right now, the choke point is gonna be
It's treatment.
15,000 gallons at the treatment plant.
Sure.
I mean, this started out for a specific purpose,
Yeah.
and that purpose is now a different purpose.
Right.
So I think that's part of the charge. We still need a sewer, we still need
Just
water.
to understand what we're
Energy
doing
is
out
the
there,
big
over
bottleneck right
marketing,
now. I mean,
but you're right, Ed. That's an excellent point to bring up.
All right,
All right, that was my
anything
one.
else under building and grounds?
Just the other thing too, reading that report, because there was talk about matching the site to the potential build out, for instance, warehousing, distribution versus manufacturing versus something more high tech that supports the airport.
Yeah.
And an 80-acre site, I would assume that site that is developable right now is probably the premier site of the whole 80 acres.
oh yeah, absolutely. That's the center.
So it kind of begs my question, how do you match infrastructure, that 80 acres to highest and best use for possibilities going in there? It's like, do we, for instance, I think of water tables, I think of overburden, I think of elevations.
Yep.
So do we have a good idea of how those are gonna play into developable sites on that 88 acres right now?
Well, I can't really speak for the potential DEC and water table piece. What I will say is that, we're looking at all of those things, including, because it's near the runway, because of potential height restrictions, which is it's real. I was surprised by how tall, a building could potentially be, given the cone of the runway and all that stuff. But that site was designed for a 300,000 square foot building, with initial power of about 4 megawatts, initial things. So those are things that I'm really looking at, just as sort of as a way to, say to slough off opportunity. Say, this might not be perfect for you, but if it's a 250,000 square foot manufacturing facility, that could, and again, all of these things can be changed on the power stuff. And I am working with the National Grid, and we've discussed the power study, and that piece. It's, and not to belabor the power piece, because it is super critical, and it's way more complex than really I'm super comfortable discussing, other than they understand it, and I have a great working relationship with the people that do understand it, and so we're working through that. But I guess, to overall answer your question as best I can, we're considering all of those things. We've had some discussions on different things that, may not fit there. Some decent sized opportunities. I'm talking with ESD on one right now. But I'm looking at it as, what do we know about the site? And just at first blush, what could go? And you get these things, well, if you need 150 megawatts of power, we know immediately that that's not going to work.
Well, I think that the one right now is the easy one, but it's
that site is
it's how you dovetail what's
all the rest of
around it
yeah.
is the critical point.
Yep.
And yeah, I just don't want to see us put something like a 20 job distribution center there that eats up a lot of footprint.
Yeah.
With minimal job opportunity, and we've got it built, and we don't have an opportunity for down the road that manufacturing.
Yeah, and it is one of those things where if there is a well-funded distribution center that would be willing to buy the land, and that would, like, let's say 80,000 square feet, not huge, not small, would, and when these things come, gonna come to the board and we're gonna talk about it. So I guess we're gonna kind of, take these opportunities as they come, and we'll try. Looking backwards is always a clearer picture, but it is tricky. I mean, would we want to potentially sell that land to a project that might not necessarily be highest and best use, but could get us square and get some of these things. So it's a tough situation.
All right.
We're gonna be talking
Yeah, I
about
don't
this.
want to be,
Yeah.
that was my concern.
If I just could, I think it's important for us to also keep in mind job numbers versus job quality.
Sure.
Because of the labor market that we're facing, focusing on job quality. And I say that knowing that a couple of the ag projects aren't necessarily that, but looking at the future, I think it's important. to
That's
keep
why we
that
do
in
a
mind.
cost of benefit analysis.
Yes.
We look at everything, the freight impact, people working under the roof are just one component of it.
And if
Right now, there's no taxes being paid for that land. So I think part of the county's impetus to get this third-party marketing is to get somebody to pay the
let's
taxes.
get something in there. Yep.
And then we determine, is it the best and highest use for that parcel? I mean, right now, we're just paying ourselves while the county's paying for it, but.
And if I can, just to go along with exactly what Jay's saying, I think, not to put words in Cheryl Mayforth's mouth, but I think that she would also be, focused more on the quality of the jobs as opposed to the number of jobs. So Jay's right on.
It depends.
Yeah, it depends.
I have one last question.
Go ahead.
Under buildings and grounds. Did you mention somewhere there's a conceptual site layout if it were a small park?
Yes.
Somewhere? Have
Yep.
we seen that yet? John, have you seen that?
I actually have the video on our website. I could probably dig it up somewhere, but there's a flyover concept. We had a full park build out. The
I
initial,
think I remember seeing that early on.
the initial
Once.
plan was for,
Yes.
1,000 jobs across 12 different businesses.
Yep.
You probably speak into your phone and it'll create it for you.
Yeah.
Since the time Marshall painfully created a bunch of pixels. Now you just ask people to do it.
You bring in a small facility, it's then the question, where do we put it? Right in the middle? No, you don't want to put it in the middle. You want to make sure. it's part of
But
the
that's
design.
where we kind of go, we have to go through all of that with building and grounds, and then it has to come to loan review, and then it has to go to the board. It's gonna go through a lot of steps. A lot of steps.
But that's what I brought up at our last meeting there was, let's pull that up and let's not try to reinvent what is already sitting there. We've already paid BCNA to do this years ago, so.
My only comment would be is what was done years ago still meet what the vision would be in 2024. And I think that's what John's committee is
I
looking
guess if
at.
we just look at.
That's why this committee was reinvigorated. Was
Forget
exactly
about
that.
what's under the roof, but the
Yes.
size of the building, I think, is the most appropriate. So if it was envisioned that, 4 80,000 square feet buildings are the best and highest use, then we just have to look at, well, clearly that's not gonna be a solar manufacturing plant.
No.
It needed to be 300,000.
But it's a starting point.
But it could be.
And conceptual
It could be
plans
X or
are.
it could be Y.
Can
To
change.
start with the original plan and see if that
100%,
still
yeah.
fits today.
And when Bernier and Carr did that, were they taking into consideration potential water table, wetlands, elevations, or?
I believe that they looked at all those
Yeah.
pieces.
There was kind of,
They're very
there's like
thorough.
one wet piece back there.
Yeah, there's one wetland area that could be mitigated, but I'm sure that was
So
a
that's,
part
that'll
of it.
hold today.
Yeah,
I
that
think
was,
we even
that
did
was
that.
all that review process was completed.
Yeah, because that would have had seeker and everything.
Yep.
Before we could ever put a shovel in the ground.
The only thing I can, the way this has gone and economic development being a constant changing is we're gonna have a vision and the end result will be something out of complete left field that we have to work through. So,
But still, I think at this point in time, we do look at opportunity and where we are in the economy and micron. That site is a cool.
No, this is
That
a
site is
crown
going to far
jewel.
exceed our expectations we had 5 years ago.
love it.
John, a quasi zoning question. We've obviously done seeker, they're envisioned for, I'll call it a park. if we have particular tenants now coming to us, do we get to ride on our seeker for the park, or do they just do something for their development? Because that was done a while ago.
It would require,
It feels like it goes with
it would
the land.
require a new secret
Okay,
process.
but for their development only, not the whole
Probably
park.
subdivision regulations.
Well, yeah, that's gotta go before the planning board.
Okay, I figured
And
for
Hounsfield, so yeah.
development, but the park proper, there was something already done, you know.
To establish the park,
wetlands
yes.
and- Yeah, okay, so that
Yes.
part.
That
would
part is done, and
remain,
then it's an individual
And it goes
project.
with the land, and it's good for
As
kind of ever.
individual development projects come up, then that'll go before the planning board, and the seeker will be done actually by the planning board.
That's the way I expected the answer, I was just kind of,
Yep.
wasn't sure how the original part was done.
So you gotta have the initial vision of what you want. I know that when we did the second park, you know, and then we brought Little Tree in and everything, that really has developed quite a bit right along the way we looked at it
That's true.
originally.
That's true.
It takes years to do it, but
It's really a 20-year build out.
I think that probably the way we would control that, like we did in that park, is by lot size. You know, which is, you know, something that, you know, then again, I mean, I hate to, you know, do that, because then we gotta do lot line adjustments or something, you know, in the future. It's just such a tricky deal.
Oh, we'll get through the process, it's early days. No more questions on page 20, Lisa, back to you.
Okay. Well, the nominating committee of Bill and I that attended, we met on November 14th, and we discussed the vacancies on the LDC board and agreed to recommend to the full board Chuck Capone to fill Chris Powers' term, and Dawn Robinson to fill the vacancy created by Kent Burdo. And we also made a proposal of the slate of officers with recommendations that Rob would be chair, Bill is vice chair, Paul treasurer, and secretary would be Ed. And that was basically our meeting.
All right, and we have a couple resolutions after that. Any questions for Lisa?
Just a quick question, because we did have one person come forward and submit a name to be considered, you know, in the process. Will that name just kind of be reintroduced potentially next round, or is it?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, because we had a couple names. One name that was submitted, we thought maybe right now it could be a potential conflict of interest because of their work with the IDA, I believe. And I think we thought if once he gets through the process, that he would be, we thought he would be excellent. I think he's been involved with the Onondaga economic development.
So any person who might be interested in serving on the seat, the answer could be, well, you know, resubmit if you're still
I
interested.
just
next
want to
time
we have an
around,
opening,
Yeah.
which
Right.
probably be this 25, right?
Potentially, yeah.
Or no, there would be, these are the two non-IDA members, so I guess
Oh.
the 26 and 27.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's right in front of me, the answer. So, the one filling Christine's position, 27 was Christine's, or we just staggered them because that's normal?
That was
I think,
That was Christine's unfilled,
Yeah, unexpired
okay, I assume that was the answer.
Yeah.
And I know we need to stagger them because we don't want to have to do this every year. Well, we have to do it every year, but. we have a
right, but as
couple
far as
breaks.
filling, yeah, because it's been a while, I think, since we've had to fill a vacancy, so.
Probably 24, somebody got appointed. Since 26, it's a 3-year term. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, so.
And I do know that the county passed resolutions for Paul and I to extend our to be reappointed.
I was gonna say-
You looked a little surprised, Paul.
No, I
That
heard my
look was
name.
like, what?
Bill's gonna call you off the bench. You gotta go back to work.
No way.
So I would certainly thank the county for reappointing us. So certainly appreciate that.
Okay.
I mean, that wasn't part of our report, but I did want to mention that as far as, since we're talking about terms, and both of us had terms expiring this
Yeah.
month,
And
so.
that's usually done by the county. So. Page 21, I'll read the resolution. Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency, Resolution 12.05, 2024.01, to appoint JCLDC board members. Whereas an initial member of the corporation, the JCIDA, shall appoint additional directors to the JCLDC board, and whereas Kent Berto resigned, leaving an unexpired term of 12/31/26, and Christine Powers resigned, leaving an unexpired term of 12/31/2027, and whereas the nominating committee met on November 14th, 2024, and recommended the appointment of Ms. Dawn Robinson to fill Mr. Berto's term and Mr. Charles Capone to fill Ms. Powers' term effective immediately, and therefore resolved this board hereby approves the recommendation. So the resolution's been read. Do we have a motion to accept?
Yes.
Paul?
Second.
Ed? Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome official, oh no, that's not the right resolution. Sorry, Don, I almost congratulated you early. Now we get to that one.
So
Oh, no, that is the right one. I'm like senile today. I am senile today. Sorry about that. So, welcome.
It's an honor to
I was
be
like
here.
reading the wrong resolution, and I was reading the right one and then looking at the wrong one. If it's okay, you want a minute or so to kind of introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, because the public does listen and the Times may pick this piece up, so.
Good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Dawn Robinson. I have the pleasure of working at Jefferson Community College and serving as the chair of the business department. It used to be School of Business, Hospitality, and Tourism. We have a great dynamic team there, and it's an amazing experience to be able to work with the community and the students. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be included in your board. So I'm excited to learn about some more of the economic development that'll happen in Jefferson County. Yes, hopefully I will be finishing my dissertation soon and be able to be Dr. Robinson. But that's part of career development. And I have the pleasure of working with Greg Gardner on several research opportunities. So we spend some time internationally working with other countries and talking about their economic development along with agricultural development. So it's been a great ride. And I'm originally from Rochester, New York. My father actually grew up in Watertown years and years ago, but we were born and raised in Rochester, New York. Owned property up in Alexandria Bay. And once I arrived in the North Country after graduating high school, I did not want to leave. So I'm a graduate of Jefferson Community College, Nazareth, College of Rochester for my bachelor's, and then my master's was through SUNY Potsdam. And my PhD will be through National University, formerly North Central University.
Very good.
Mind
Thank
if,
you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
mind if I ask you,
Yeah.
what's your dissertation? What you're gonna do, your doctorate? What was your dissertation?
Yeah, so it's an educational leadership. So it's leadership. So I teach primarily marketing and management, but I teach the full slate of business coursework. But my actual focus on dissertation is first generation community college students and their ability to persist and complete coursework and complete programs. And how do we connect them through guided pathways, which is an initiative that Jefferson Community College state took on. So it's how do we encourage students to seek additional learning? How do we support them throughout that learning, especially, and my focus is that first gen, because I am a first gen student. So my family is made up of a whole lot of commercial roofers. And construction workers, mechanics, and floor installers and masons. So I come from a long line of labor-based family members. So myself being a first-gen student, wanting to make sure that those students are supported all the way through, and then finding them continued employment wherever they seek or continued learning. So, yeah.
Great, it's good to have you here.
Well, welcome aboard.
Okay.
Moving on to page 22, we have another resolution for our officers of the IDA. Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency, Resolution 12.05.204.02 for election of officers, whereas the nominating committee met on November 14th, 2024, and recommended the following slate of officers for the 2025 calendar year. Chairman, Robert E. Eliasson Jr., Vice Chairman, Honorary William W. Johnson, Treasurer Paul D. Warnick, Secretary W. Edward Waldorf, and therefore be resolved, this Board of Directors approves this slate of officers. Years of life left some days. I hope so, but this wasn't a life commitment. That moves us on to a couple matters of unfinished business. If we do consider an executive session, let's move it to the end of this section, towards the end of the meeting, if that's okay. So we can kind of get through any business. So we do have, starting on page 23, Marshall and I have spoken about it. He's gone through it with staff. We've actually spoke with the OSC, Office of State Controller. They had a follow-up. It's kind of a non-binding audit, but they did a follow-up of a prior audit. They found some areas where, in their vernacular, they reported some things that had no correction. We could discuss that, but then there's, out of 5, I think it was like 2 not started, 1 corrected, and sort of 1 in or 2 in
Partially
process.
implemented.
It's something of that nature. The letter's self-explanatory. Regardless of the findings, we take this serious. The things that were found where we can debate their, intensity and level of corrective action, but at the end of the day, the state gets to make the rules. We're kind of bound by following the state's rules, and there's some corrections we will make. So one of the things Marsh and I spoke about was maybe appointing, we debated which committee, but we kind of settled on, we think the governance committee can kind of do a follow-up, say in 3 or 4 months or some period of time to kind of check in on, like, hey, how are we doing? It's very obvious the things that needed some level of correction. And again, when you read through them, you're like, geez, why is this deficient? But unfortunately, the rules are the rules. We don't get to make them. We don't get to change them. So
when I read that, that's the first thing that I said, oh my God, this is probably gonna run through governance, so.
yeah,
We got a little
so
homework to do.
I'll let Marshall and staff, kind of give us an update. They've had several meetings. Some of the things have actually already been corrected, I believe. But really just an open discussion with the board. Governance, the right choice. Just go through that, and then we can kind of just.
Yeah. I guess it really, exactly as Rob said, we do take this seriously. There were a couple of things. One was implemented, one was partially implemented, and 3 of them were not implemented. They are things that
At the time of the audit.
At the time, and this all started from the 2020, and then there was some corrective action that was put in place, and then this was a follow-up to that corrective action to see how well we implemented those corrective actions. And then this was the result. There's no further response required. We don't respond to this. We are just expected to make the changes. And
do they have a slate that they may do another audit, or is it sort of at their pleasure?
It's at their pleasure.
So we may or may not get audited.
May or may not. Yep.
Ever again.
Yep. I think but I would say that it probably puts us a little bit more likelihood for it, or potentially way more likelihood.
I'd say way more.
Yeah.
I would say I'd err on the side.
Yep.
Expect them here in 12 months.
Yeah.
14
Absolutely.
months. Yep.
Okay.
I'd move forward with that concept.
Position.
Yeah.
You're going to be looked at.
Yep.
Rest of the board comfortable with some period of 3 months might be too premature, but I think it's good to check in on governance, to actually check in on the status of this, just have a governance meeting and go through each of the points and see where we are and kind of make our own ruling if it's been implemented or corrected or what have you. Is that 3 months fair? I guess 3 months, why don't we say the March board meeting or the March calendar for committee it would be 4 months at that point, but I don't think we want to meet in February.
Yeah. My only question is at this point, do you, Marshall and Lyle, do you have clear a clear, action plan to specifically address them, whether it's new forms or more,
Yes.
more.
What I'll say
follow-up.
is, these are really, they're not opaque. They're not things where there's any, it's, did you, independently verify the ST60, for instance? Meg, would you say that, like, they're that cut and dry?
Yeah.
So, as far as what we need to do is just add them to our usual checklist of things that we do for the thing. So, as far as our plan, it's add these to the checklist and make sure that they're done.
I mean, one of them's kind of a new procedure, a cost benefit analysis for sales tax exemption only. It was deemed that it wasn't really necessary, but the state is saying it's necessary, so guess what? It's necessary now. But it's just, we didn't not do something, we just didn't believe it to be appropriate. And a lot of it will come out in the Paris reporting.
Yep.
I know you and I debated the job reporting, what is it, ST60?
Which one is the
45.
job report?
Whatever.
NYS 45.
Whatever, and you were like,
45.
it's the businesses report to the state, so why would we verify what they're reporting to the state? We would think the state would verify that.
Because it's going back to what they say in the application and we have to say.
Yeah,
it's true or
exactly.
not.
So part of it is maybe additional administrative work on our behalf, or we're gonna have to be, I've mentioned just simple payroll reporting from our businesses. I mean, it's a lot more burdensome on staff and it's a lot more reporting, but if it's something we can get a clearer picture, the businesses that are getting the benefits are the ones that actually have to do the work and report it. We just have to somehow verify it. That's the part that is the objective term here, or subjective term.
Yeah, because we're
What's
not
verifying?
auditors.
Well, we've
I
been,
guess we're
we've
paid
been
penny
verifying.
mileage. She could
Making
drive,
us
we're paid
auditors.
penny mileage. She could drive around the county and go to the businesses and say, do you have like 4 employees or 5 or what?
Well, we've been verifying it through the application
Correct.
process. As an application is submitted, they're showing a capital expenditure.
Mhm.
We're assuming it's right. They're signing the application,
Yeah.
attesting to it. On retained jobs, we probably should request an NYS 45, which we can do. At the end of the project, we have to go back and verify once again
Mhm.
that the capital expenditure was the
Mhm.
capital expenditure. Here again, they report every year, they're attesting to the numbers, and that's been our process.
Yeah.
So, I think what has been suggested goes beyond the original intent of the whole program,
Okay.
and we can live with it. It will slow the process down. We're going to have proof or in some indication of the capital expenditure on the front end, other than just the application. On the back end,
Okay.
we'll figure out something on that.
Well, we'll go through these. I mean, none of them are substantive. I mean, they're obviously deficient, but they're not substantive that you're following no rules and
Yeah, just-
really, you guys are really bad. So it wasn't that tone of a letter, but there were clearly some procedural areas that the state believes one level of expectation and we believe a second level of expectation, and they're not the same levels.
But it also, to me, demonstrates how New York State is really going after sales tax exemptions.
Yeah, and this will change from year to
Well,
year.
if you pay attention, there's downstate senators that are constantly talking about increasing oversight of IDAs, and it's better we clean it up now as that greater oversight comes. And I think Justin's done a great job of cleaning a lot of this stuff up with
No, it is.
his project agreements that are substantially more detailed than previous years, so.
I mean, we have great oversight. We have the Board of Legislators for the County of Jefferson. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if the state wants more oversight, they can put more money in a slush fund and pay the IDAs to do it. But that's what the state collects a lot of taxes for, is to do some of this work, and they seem to refuse to. But anyway, that's my gripe for the day.
Just that.
And I do,
It won't be the last gripe. It's the last one you hear.
I can't not mention how helpful Peg has been on this. When we first got the letter, of course, I'm like, what is this? This doesn't feel great, this letter. And, immediately Peg had the paper out and the corrective action plan. And I think her initial response was, I don't think this is gonna go really great. And she was right on as usual. So, thank you. And of course, Lyle, Lyle has answers for all of these things and reasons why we may or may not have done those things and all of things that are reasonable. And also the auditors that came in were great. They were helpful and sometimes, you're dealing with these things, and I think that maybe that's one thing that auditors have gotten better at is it just seems like it's not as a fight or an antagonistic relationship.
Yeah.
It was a hey,
So
how is this going kind of thing.
teacher student.
It
We're
was.
supposed to let you know why you're deficient.
It
not
really
just
was.
say you failed.
Yeah.
And you figure it out.
Yep.
Um,
I mean, and the most experienced person sitting in the room is Lyle, and he has good answers for all of these things that are completely reasonable.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, okay, we get it. But you're gonna have to do this. So,
But as governance goes through this, maybe one of the steps we could take, I know the state would entertain a call, and maybe we can develop some initial plans of corrective action and maybe see if they feel that these are
Yeah.
suitable. I mean, if they're gonna re-audit at some point, it might make sense that we don't go down a path that needs to have a left turn or a right turn at some point.
True.
Okay.
Good luck. Good luck.
Well, you can always ask.
No, I know.
I did. During our exit, and I said, do you have any samples to share? No. we don't do that.
Exactly.
So we just gotta come up with it on our own.
Exactly.
Their assumption is we're not following our corrective action.
Okay.
And so they're not going to help you with
And
that.
we can always change our corrective action to make sure we're following it.
That's the plan.
I guess let's just do things that are, within the boundaries of what, like you say, if the program intent is X, we just need to have an objective and an end result. And then we can robustly defend that we're within our objectives. That's what I think.
Part of the end result should be a visit to a new project. And we used to do a lot of that. When I first came, we all did it. And you do a write-up on what you've seen, so on and so forth. This is part of the verification of the completion of the project. You may not get the dollar amount, but you need to try. So.
That's a good point.
Okay.
We did do that when I first started. There was a lot more tours of businesses and that is, and you do, just in past careers that I've had, visiting with a customer,
Yeah.
and that's important.
That might be some of governance's findings. When it's not snowing anymore, maybe there's some projects that are
Yeah.
suitable to visit.
Yep.
And I understand that, those early years, we did a lot of business visitations.
Yeah.
We had it set right up there. One of the goals of staff was X number of visits a year and everything.
Got away from that.
Well, you get away from it because you get so busy, it's hard to, it's hard to fit it in, but now we have to look at it again.
Well,
Right,
and I
Pete,
think you gotta
go
apply
ahead.
that criteria to the sale leasebacks, the sales tax exemptions. It's like now we've almost gotta treat them like a full
Absolutely
build out,
right.
a full build out, which, that's a whole nother level for us.
Yeah, and I do think those are probably the benefit that we're a little bit, to use probably not the best term, more liberal on, that it's a right we have and we're exercising the right to give a sales tax exemption, and the paperwork is all done properly, but I do think the state is treating it like, hey, it's no different than a $10 million capital investment. This $30,000 sales tax exemption is also public money, and it is, whether it be 50 cents or 50,000. All right, page 29, we have proposed restructuring of our fee structure. I had just one question. I think it's under the leaseback. Why do we bother separating out the annual administrative fee, renewable energy, and the other fee? They're the actual same amount. I mean, I'm just kind of curious why. I know why it was there initially.
They weren't. Initially, they were $1,000 for the annual fee and $1,500 for
Okay.
renewable.
So, but if we're changing the normal fee to $1,500, do we really need to identify the renewable energy project for the same value since it's under leaseback? I mean, it's still a project.
Probably not.
That'd be my only question, to see duplicative.
Initially, solar was the only administrative fee
Yeah.
applied.
No, I said I understand why it was there initially, just that it doesn't seem to serve a purpose anymore.
Maybe drop the word solar.
We'll just get rid of the last section because it's still a fee under leaseback. If it is, if we approve to raise the other one to 1,500.
Yep.
Any other comments from anyone? Big jump
Still
in-
probably not covering our costs.
Oh,
with
gosh,
it.
no.
Jesus, no.
So,
I mean, I could argue the renewable energy project could be $5,000, just like the one up above. I mean, it's refundable, so like,
Yeah.
but also, how many of these projects are we gonna be getting in the next couple of years? Probably zero. Maybe not.
Got a couple.
Yeah, well, after January, I'm not sure they're gonna be exactly widely accepted anywhere in the country, so it's just, that's my only comment.
I'll move the amendments to the fee schedule.
Okay, we have a first, a second.
Second.
John, any other discussion? So I think we remove.
And the
So I'll drop
removal
that
of the
rate.
renewable
Okay.
energy projects
So we can
amended as
drop that.
street. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
In a second.
All right, so we're just gonna drop that renewable energy project annual administrative because it falls under, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion or, okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Fee schedule. Why don't we just quickly go through the business and council with that, if there is none, then we can go to, because technically the executive session is new business.
Yep.
So having said that, there should be no new business that we can discuss in the public at this moment. Is there any that anyone needs to bring up? Okay, anything from council?
Nothing to report right now.
Okay, that leads us to the board's consideration of an executive session to discuss personal finances, blah, 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 whatever the right thing to say is. You could fill in the blank. I don't know what, I'm not making the motion.
Can't say blah, blah, blah.
I'm not making the motion, somebody else has to, but.
I would move we enter executive sessions to discuss the personal finances of several proposed or existing projects.
Okay. We have
Second.
a second, and who can remain? Everyone in the room
Everyone.
except the public?
Staff and council.
So we have to dump a couple.
Did we approve that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't vote yet, it's
Okay.
just amending.
Quick
who's gonna
question, there are
remain.
some other people that came into the meeting.
They're
Yes.
from the they're for the DRT.
They're for the
Okay.
later meeting, and I'm gonna be texting them when we're
Because
ready.
I actually whispered who, I wasn't sure
Okay.
who was, I thought there was like an important project I didn't know about. So, we have a first, second,
Yeah, we're done.
all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Recording stopped.
And then Marshall will follow us down the